Welcome to the Rick Wyman Show for this week. We've got a lot to talk about, including the Sudbury Wolves. And, of course, we'll also get into the Basketball Super League. A lot about nothing that's been going on of late. Of course, the league originally scheduled to start in November. Right now, what are we getting? Nothing but crickets. So we'll talk about that. But first, we've got to talk about the Sudbury Wolves and their illustrious 0-5 start. I'm being facetious here. And of course, my special guest is a well-known Sudbury blogger. His name is T-Puck, and of course, you must subscribe to his rants and railings on the local hockey scene. You can do that at Puckhead, Puckhead 8 at bellnet.ca. Highly respected, a longtime fan, a good friend of mine, and of course, he kind of reminds me of a professional wrestler because really, T-Puck is the type of guy where there's no holds barred. He's the rowdy Roddy Piper, for those of you who may remember that anything can happen, will happen, and I would like to think that my guest has a favorite expression of, just when you think you know the answers, he will change the question. Welcome. Great to have you on board, T-Puck.
Thanks, Rick. Nice to be here.
Okay, on the Rick Wyman Show, we start off with the Sudbury Wolves, an 0-5 start. And of course, I was being somewhat facetious when I said illustrious in regards to the Wolves. Some really tough sledding last weekend against some very good opposition. And right now, with the team heading into a home game coming up on Friday against North Bay, very simply, here's a soft toss. They get harder. They get harder as this show goes on. Where is this team heading?
Well, right now they're in a difficult spot, Rick. As you know, they have two of their best players on the injured list, and Nathan Villeneuve is enjoying his time in Seattle, and Kieran Moulton is enjoying his time in Winnipeg as they're rehabilitating their injuries. That's a very big loss for this team because it doesn't have a lot of scoring. And when you look at it, a goal a game is missing from the lineup. So that's a huge hole. As far as the defense, it's very young and it's very raw. And this is a problem. Before the season, when I did my preview for the Wolves, I made a point to say that there was one defenseman, that's Gavin Ewells, with 4 years experience. Then you had Luca Blonda and Trevor Odell, who had 1 year of experience. And the other five guys, even though a lot of them are not technically rookies, because you have to be 17 or younger to be classified as a rookie in the OHL, they're basically rookies. It doesn't matter how old they are, and they're taking their lumps.
Your prediction at the onset of this season, for those watching this for the first time, what was your original call as to where the Wolves would place?
My original call was sixth place, but in the wide open world of the OHL, doing predictions is sort of like playing Russian roulette. But I predicted them sixth. But what I did say is that if the defense plays well, they can reach that rung. But if the defense doesn't play well, then they're going to be in the lottery, and they're going to be looking for bingo balls come April.
Okay, when we talk about the defense, of course, my guy, Luca Blonda, I loved the guy last year. And of course, I'm kind of wondering about the situation on the blue line. And we've talked about this, of course, many times in the past week. And some of the key ingredients needed for success: puck possession in your own zone, problematic last weekend, and of course, neutral zone aggression. If you don't have the puck, you keep losing the puck in your own end, you're giving the opposition ample opportunity to set up in the neutral zone and take that momentum and the initiative and, of course, the setup into your end. And I guess this is quite common in a lot of, hockey circles, that you've got to gain control. You've got to be somewhat aggressive to take that initiative into the opposition zone. So again, this has got to be a teachable aspect of the game that the players have got to buy into. And the thing is, I'm not saying that they've got to do it in 3 weeks or 3 months. They've got to pick up on this right now. So I guess the onus would have to be on Scott Barney and the coaching staff to implement this and make sure, even though he's got rookies, even though he's shorthanded by a couple of veterans, that you've got to be systematic and buy into that system, kind of like what they did last fall when they got off to that good start. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Rick. What I would say is this: the most important thing that a defense can do is they have to be able to move the puck out of their own end, and there's two reasons for that. Firstly, if you can make a good first pass out of the zone, then you're going to hit an attacking player with speed. If you don't, and this is what happened on the weekend, there were a lot of first pass that were inaccurate, that were being missed. So what was happening is that the Wolves were turning the puck over, generally in the neutral zone, and when you don't get out of your zone, you spend too much time playing defense. And when you play too much defense, you're going to get scored on eventually.
Okay, then there's goaltending. We've got 4 goaltenders on the Wolves roster. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And it looks like we're trying to determine, or at least the coaching staff, as opposed to my decision, the coaching staff is trying to determine who number 1 will be. Is it going to be Finn Marshall? Is it going to be Owen Leonard? What take do we have as a result of a couple of weekends of play and our goaltending situation here in Sudbury?
I would say that the Wolves goaltending situation is about as foggy as a morning in San Francisco. I don't think the first 5 games of the season have done anything to put any of the goaltenders above each other. So basically, now you have 4 goaltenders basically fighting for the starting spot. One thing I'll tell you, there's an old saying in the OHL, a 19-year-old goaltender is a very fungible commodity in the sense that a lot of teams don't carry 19-year-old goaltenders simply because they're trying to develop a younger goaltender underneath their starter. The Wolves have 3 19-year-old goaltenders. In my view, that's two too many. What I would do, and this is just me, they need to pick one of their 19-year-olds as their starter, go with that person. And I would say, just based on last season, Finn Marshall would be the guy who probably is the goaltender in pole position for the number 1 job. That doesn't mean that Jason Tremblay or Carson Chartier can't take the job away from him, but I would say right now, asking me, Marshall would be my starter. I think the hope for the team is young Owen Leonard. He's 16 years old. He's a rookie. He's played relatively well in the home opener. As you know, he had an excellent game. And, he came in relief in one of the road games last week. And it was a difficult situation for him. He didn't have his best night, but he certainly made some excellent stops.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the playoffs, but that seems somewhat incredulous right now in terms of looking ahead to March. So you know what? I think we're going to save this for another time because T-Puck, it's still early. Still early. I always give lineups anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks before I make a final decision. And of course, for those of you watching, maybe for the first time, you're probably saying, yeah, these 2 guys, yeah, older guys, hockey, they've got opinions. Look, we have forgotten more than some people have actually learned in terms of watching hockey. I mean, I bring many years of experience, and I know T-Puck, he's been around, he's been on that Zamboni a few times around the rink as well. So it's not like we're trying to blow smoke right now into a situation. We're just trying to identify and maybe come up with some plausible situations. He's T-Puck. Remember, it's Puckhead8 at bellnet.ca. I urge you to get on board. He takes subscribers. Be more than happy to do that. And again, it's a great read, and you never know what you're going to get. Some of it's comical, some of it's pretty serious, but he does a great job. So I want to talk to you about future picks. We gave up a ton last year in Sudbury. The Muse trade, a disaster. Henry walks. Roberts gone. And, of course, no seconds for a couple of seasons. The cupboard, as they say, is bare, which prompts me to suggest that Villeneuve and Walton will not be around by the time the trading deadline arrives in the OHL in early January, because after all, you've got to get some of those picks back. Good strategy?
I think that's what I would do. Is the Wolves are in a very difficult position when your team is not performing up to expectations, and so far, obviously, this season they haven't, and they don't have draft picks. The Ontario Hockey League is a very difficult league. You've got some very bright general managers, and don't think for a moment they don't know the Wolves situation. And so, yes, I would definitely say that come trade deadline or before, that Kieran Walton and Nathan Villeneuve are going to garner considerable interest. The problem is for the Wolves, because they're in such a dire position, are they going to get value that they should for these players? And when your team is bad and you don't have draft picks, there are a lot of people that will give you this line. Well, you need help. So we'll give you a bunch of draft picks, but they won't be the premium second round picks, perhaps, that you gave away. And it's very difficult when you have no second round picks in 2026, 2027, or 2028. That's a very difficult situation.
Okay, so was this precipitated by the fact that Musty was never traded last year? Because after all, you could have wound up with a lot more last year than what happened eventually with the Wolves in leaving the playoff race very early. But you make a trade, get some talent, maybe get a couple of picks, then you may not have been forced to make that big deal for Hughes later on. And of course, that didn't turn out well, but we're not going to rehash that. But again, the whole Musty situation still stinks in the minds of a lot of hockey fans who talk to me, talk to you, and in general, they talk and they say, you know what, things could have been handled a lot better.
I think what happened with the Musty situation, in retrospect, and now of course we have the benefit of hindsight, and as you know, hindsight is always 2020. I think what happened was that the Wolves management overplayed their hand. And what I mean by that is I think the Wolves were expecting a ton of interest for Musty. Unfortunately, because of what happened with the holdout and, Quentin Musty, by last season, his fourth year in the OHL, was a known commodity. And I think there were a lot of teams that said, yeah, that young man has talent, but two things. One, is he going to fit in our dressing room? Is he going to fit our culture? And does he have the character that we want on our team? And I think that's one of the main reasons why Musty wasn't traded. I don't think the Wolves, as I was going to say, I don't think the Wolves thought that there was going to be any difficulty in unloading Musty, but unfortunately, the player's reputation preceded him, and they got a big surprise, as did the player, I would say, at the trade deadline, because I would say that Musty was thinking that he was getting a ticket out of town.
Don't think the Hunter boys would have bought into that situation too easily, because Musty wasn't that type of player to be on a championship winning team, as we noticed last spring.
We certainly did.
No. Okay, so I'll leave you with this one. It's a rather ominous statement that you made in your blog this week, and that's why I urge hockey fans to subscribe. Just send TPuck a note, puckhead8@bellnet.ca. You summed up one of your blogs by stating that this could be, or at least the Wolves could be, in the midst of a nuclear winter. Can you expand upon that?
Yes, I have to tell you, as a season ticket holder for many years, a fan of the team, a person who cares deeply about the community, I don't make these statements lightly. They're very troubling. And, nuclear winter is not a nice expression, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But the difficulty is, I don't see this situation for the Wolves resolving in the short term or resolving easily. Uh, they're in a situation where the team is struggling. The cupboard is bare, as you articulately said. And the difficulty is that the momentum that the team has gathered over the last 3 or 4 years in the Dario Zulich era, I sense that momentum is petering out, and when that happens, and fans lose their enthusiasm, and the club flounders, that's nuclear winter, and it's even more important because we've now broken ground on the new arena. If I were Wolves management, I think I would have said to myself, when that arena opens in 2028, and let's hope that it does on time, but if it's going to open in 2028, I want to have a team that's moving over to that arena that's on the upswing. I don't want to have a team that represents my city with no draft picks, maybe a couple of seasons of missing the playoffs, and now you're moving into a new barn. It's not a good look for the community. It isn't a good look for the Wolves. And it's just a very difficult situation. To me, all of those elements together equal nuclear winter.
Okay, you're jumping the gun here, so to speak. You're being reasonably optimistic at 2028. The team and the city don't even have a lease, but you know what? We're going to talk about that in the future installment because, there's a lot to get into. I'd like to get someone from the city and have you come back as well to give me your take on this because whoever thought about possibly building an arena, throwing a shovel, let alone getting a front end loader or whatever else you need out there to build an arena without having a deal in place. And it's been my learning, at least talking to former owners of the Sudbury Wolves, the Burgess family, and some of their management, that you want to procure at least a 10-year deal. Right now, there is no deal. So I guess they're quibbling, the city and Sudbury Wolves Sports and Entertainment, over concession rights. Of course, there's a lot of money at stake with beer, popcorn, et cetera, but that's going to be another story for another day. T-Puck, I appreciate your contribution to the show, the Rick Wyman Show for today. Remember, check out the blog Puckhead, Puckhead 8 at bellnet.ca. A pleasure. And you'll be back on this show because we'll always have a lot to talk about on the Rick Wyman Show. Thanks for this. Okay, as we wrap up this segment of the Rick Wyman Show, I want to get into the Basketball Super League, or rather, what's to talk about the Basketball Super League? Management here in Sudbury is eager, chomping at the bit to get the season started. And I just want to share with you an interesting text message that I received from Logan Stutz, the coach and general manager of the Sudbury Five, earlier this week. I called him last week and I said, "Hey, Logan, what's going on? Just want to get a feel in terms of player input and rosters, what's happening with the league schedule," because I hadn't heard anything as of last week. So his response Monday: "Hey, Rick, I just don't have any news at the moment. When I know, I'll let you know." Is that an ominous statement or what? What does that say about the Basketball Super League? Here we are coming off a championship season with the Sudbury Five. Logan did a great job, managed to get everything in place. He crossed the T's, dotted the I's, good roster, championship winning team. And here we are in the month of October. And for basketball fans, and it doesn't really encompass the entire greater Sudbury area. I mean, the Five have a group of hardcore fans. I like doing the games along with Nick Liard, and we have a blast doing them. It's fun basketball. But a couple of years ago, when a friend of mine coined the phrase beer league basketball. What does that say about the Basketball Super League? Dave Magley, the president, the CEO, the guy who washes all the dishes and dries them as well, it's been silence. Crickets. Haven't heard anything in regards to what's happening with the league. I don't fault SWSE because I know Dario loves his basketball, Dario Zulich. I know the production team here love doing basketball. It's just a fun game to do. So we hope to get into that shortly because I'd like a season to start sometime. Is it only going to be Canadian teams this season? Are we going to get rid of the TBL teams? From what I'm hearing right now, no London, no Saginaw. So what does that say about the future of the Basketball Super League? Thanks for watching The Rick Wyman Show. We're back in 7 days with more.